who would come out here during the summertime? Was it your mom that was out here all the time?
My mother was the head honcho, and she came from a family of 12 children, 6 girls and 6 boys. And they all had children except one of the boys. One of the boys didn't have any children in his marriage. But the others all had 2 or 3 children, and during the week we would have anywhere from 26 to 28 people out the house. And people would sleep sometimes in chairs, sometimes we would throw pads on the floor and they would sleep on the floor, but they all had a good time because they were out to summer cottage. On the weekends, the men would come from Chicago, and then we'd have upwards of 30 or 35 people over the weekend.
Wow.
And consequently, it was quite a thing to try to keep food on the table for that amount of people. So, but we managed real well with the things we had. We had a farmer who was right next to Villa Bianco, which turned out to be Tullio's and later demised that went into Thornton's over there.
Yeah.
And there was a farm right next to it, a small farm, 11 acres, owned by Yeppie Thompson, who was the grandfather to the Clausen boys. And we used to go over there and purchase milk from him, 25 cents a gallon with all the cream on the top. Yeah.
People are talking about the recession and everything now, how it's the worst recession since the Great Depression.
Yeah.
So what was it like living out here during that time and in the city during the Depression?
Well, most of the people out here at that time were self-sufficient because they were either on farms, or if they were working in factories or things like that, they were gainfully employed and they were at least eking out a living. And the wrath of it wasn't as severe as it was in the city. And everything, like I say, we were pretty fortunate, my family anyway, was pretty fortunate because my dad was in a couple of enterprises and he always had enough of scutas to put a roof over the head and food on the table and clothes on the back. But some were not as fortunate, so this is the reason why they were out here at the summer cottage for the whole summer, because it lessened the burden on them in the city.
Ah, okay.
And the uncles didn't have to put out for foodstuffs and so forth and so on, and they were able to save a couple dollars a week at that time. But the recession, or whatever you want to call it, depression, was fairly severe in a lot of respects, but we were fortunate. Like I say, we had fresh coffee cake and all things such as that, and we had plenty of food. We'd fish, but like I say, at that time in life, there weren't that many vehicles out here either. There was, the vehicle of transportation for all of the younger and middle-aged folks was bicycle. Bicycle or feet. And that was it. And in the summer times out here, we never wore shoes except if we went to the roller rink. And
so you were in your bare feet during the summertime out here?
All the time in the summer, except if we had to go town for something special or something.
So that was just, the kids were just,
Kids were all
barefoot.
All barefoot.
And was that because you couldn't afford shoes, or was that?
We saved money on shoes because when we came out here, the shoes that we did have would never fit us when we went back to school because of our running around barefoot out here on the gravel. And we learned to run on the gravel and never even bothered.
Well, Bill Ryan,
got that
him
tough.
along the time.
Bill and I met when when we first come out here, and we were friends for over 70 years.
Was he the same age as you?
I was 79, and at the time I was 81. I was 2 years older than he passed at 79, and yeah, it doesn't seem like it going that long already.
Yeah.
Gosh. Oh boy.
So where did Bill live at the time?
He lived on Racine Avenue in Chicago.
Okay, so he was from the city too then.
Yeah.
And
Ryan Brothers Cinder Company. That's his dad and his brothers, his dad's brothers, his uncles, I should say. His uncle, Bill was an only child. His uncles and his dad were in the Ryan Brothers Cinder Company. And that's when they had horse-drawn wagons, and they would shovel these cinders by hand. And they all wound up with humpbacks from shoveling so much.
oh,
Everyone, well,
Yeah.
muscles developed
yeah.
because they were all scoopers, you know. And every one of them, if you looked at them from a side view, they all had a muscular and overdeveloped muscles from shoveling, all of them.
So-
They're strong as bulls.
Wow. So Bill, you really didn't know in Chicago. You knew him from seeing him around here.
Well, I knew him out here, but we kept in touch in Chicago.
Oh, you did.
Yeah, later on in life, I mean, when we got to driving cars, Bill wound up with a nickname of Wheel Ryan, we used to call him. He was always talking about getting a wheel. Oh, you got a wheel.
So
That's when we used to have spinners on the steering wheel.
all the knobs on there.
Yeah, spinners. Yeah, they call them spinners. Too lazy to move our hands around. We take a spinner and spin the wheel.
So
Yeah.
so he was. You two guys were just. You did everything together.
Bosom
huh?
buddies for all that time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to go out on dates all the time, and take our girls out together and go to dinner and go to theaters and things like that. And a lifelong friend, and my grandfather on my mother's side always told me that, Bob, he said, if you go to your grave with one true friend, he says, you've been a lucky man. And I'm more than a lucky man. I have got more than one true friend. I consider myself a very, very lucky person, because the children today have access to all of these things like computers and these electronic games and things like that, which we never saw or heard of.
Yeah. So when you guys were growing up, I mean, your entertainment around here was, the lake, the pool, the roller rink,
Yeah.
but I mean, you were listening to radio.
Yeah, we listened to radio, and we used to listen to Jack, Doc, and Reggie, called I Love a Mystery at that time, and we'd turn out all the lights, and then we'd vision it ourselves, what the situation was. When they would describe it over the radio, which they'd done very well, why, we would place ourselves in the same situation, and we used to enjoy that very much.